I think I think that just the way Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says, that's not something that he wants to give in on. And I would agree with him. It's not the president's responsibility or authority to be able to dictate to Israel where those borders ought to be. That's Israel's decision.
All right. Who do you think is your toughest competitor in this GOP field?
Well, if you look at it from the traditional top-down model, it would be Mitt Romney, because he has a very high name ID and he has a lot of money. Now, Sean, I know this may shock you, but I did not become a cajillionaire when I left Godfathers. I don't have the money that a Mitt Romney has. So the fact that he can buy an organization, put it in place in the various places around the country, especially the early primary states, he has an advantage because of resources. On the other hand, my strategy is not top-down, it is bottoms-up. The difference is you don't need millions of dollars to get your campaign going. We were able to get my campaign going with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and most importantly, we have a lot more volunteers that's propelling this campaign.
All right, we'll talk very much, hopefully often in the future. Thanks, Herman Cain, for being with us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
And coming up, a deadly tornado rips through Missouri. And coming up next, we're going to talk to the man who shot this video of this massive twister. We'll get reaction from those on the ground. And then later, well, new reports out that Obama's reelection campaign is trying to dig up dirt on the GOP powerhouse, even though he swears he's not running. And we'll check in with Karl Rove. Also, Deirdre Imus versus Bob Beckel, all coming up tonight on Hannity. And search and rescue efforts are still underway tonight in Joplin, Missouri, after a near mile-wide tornado tore a 6-mile path of destruction through the city last night. Missouri residents were only given 20 minutes notice before the deadly twister touched down. The National Weather Service is reporting at least 116 people have been killed, and they are expecting that number to rise. Now, this video of the deadly tornado was shot by Jeff and Catherine Petrosky.
Tearing up the entire city on the south side of Joplin right now. This is Jeff Petrosky, and it's a massive tornado, massive destruction.
All right, joining me now is the man who shot that video from twisterchasers.com. Is Jeff Petrosky is with us. Jeff, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, first of all, you can see the devastation. We know how many people have died. This thing is massive. I mean, this is what you do. You go out and you kind of follow this and try and videotape this?
Well, it goes a lot more than that. You know, we've been doing this for 35 plus years, and of course, you know, one of the things that's critical, and just like it was on Saturday, yesterday, was that when you have a day where we have tornadoes and these violent thunderstorms, just every second counts when you have a tornado on the ground moving into a city, whether it be a small community or a large city. Every second you get that warning out quicker, or sounding the sirens and the planes and those things, it saves lives, and sometimes thousands of lives. And they had 20 minutes warning, and I'm sure because of advance warning, it saved many, many lives. But you get an EF4, mile wide, moving at 50 miles an hour in heavy populated areas, and you're going to have pretty heavy casualties. That's what we experienced yesterday.
Now I'm looking at this, and I was told that as far as like 70 miles away, debris was found from this tornado. If you've been doing this for 35 years, was this one of the worst you've seen?
This is definitely one of the top 5. Each tornado has its own personality in the sense of what it does. But when you compare this EF4, it's different than the Alabama EF4. It's just a couple weeks back on the 27th in Alabama. But this EF4, what was amazing about it, this one, is how fast the tornado grew and width-wise, starting from about a quarter-mile wide to a mile wide in literally a minute or two, and then literally in the forward speed of the tornado, how fast it grew to a violent tornado, and then the velocity going through the city, the heart of the city, was absolutely stunning to me on this particular tornado.
Well, 3/4 of the city, we're told, was wiped out here, and we saw some of that footage that you showed. When you went back and you looked at this, in terms of the actual damage, was it some of the worst you've seen?
It is definitely on the top 5 most damage. I mean, obviously the top of, I think, the most damage I've ever seen was actually on the 27th in Huckleberry in the Smithfield, Mississippi. Also the Oklahoma City EF5 tornado we had May 30, 99. But this definitely is in the top 5, just on the sheer can't see the tornado.
One last question.
Yeah.
Why? Just a personal question. Why do you? Because obviously, if you're chasing these storms, you're putting yourself in harm's way. Why do you do it?
You know, Hannity, when I was 14 years old, basically almost drowned in a flash flood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Tulsa Fire Department saved me. And ever since a little kid, I've always been fascinated with weather and almost being killed by weather. I spent my whole life, working with weather and understanding weather. And when we're out storm chasing and we're out, filming weather, if we see something bad that's unfolding, and a lot of times we'll know things before they happen, so we can notify the local officials or local weather service, so people can get warnings out and save lives. And over the course of many, many years, we know for a fact that we've made huge impacts all over the U.S. in what we do. And it's very gratifying at the end of the day that we know we can help other people just by taking the time out to make a phone call and tell somebody that something is coming when they don't know it's coming on the way.
All right, Jeff, thanks so much for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. Now, to talk about the devastation on the ground are Ashley Mickelwaite, president of the Joplin School Board, and her home was damaged but not completely destroyed. And from the Salvation Army, Norman Granger. Norman, let me start with you. I'm told that about 3/4 of the town was wiped out, and we saw the images. With the 20-minute notice, do you think a lot of lives were saved?
Say that again?
Do you think with the 20-minute notice that lives were saved?
I mean, when I came to the community, the first thing I thought was incredible. I mean, the damage is incredible on the ground. I called Captain Poff last night, and he says it was like a war zone. And having come down here from Springfield, Missouri, it is like a war zone. It's just absolutely incredible, the damage we're seeing.
Ashley, let me ask you, I understand your husband and son were driving home from his graduation when the storm hit. Your daughter was ahead of you. Tell us what happened from your family's point of view.
All three of us were in our van, and we were trying to find a safe place to get to and couldn't, and basically hunkered down on the east side of a strong building. The car was buffeted badly. We saw a tree fall 10 feet from us. My daughter was home alone. She was calling on the cell phone. We told her to get to a safe place, and she was reporting that glass was breaking. We finally managed to get back home, but we had to walk home about 7 blocks or so in our graduation gowns. Wow.
And we can just look at this devastation. It looks like the entire community, or at least 70% of it, was wiped out. Is that what you saw today?
It's really bad. Yes, it's really bad.
All right, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. And I know the Salvation Army and other support groups are there. Thank you for being with us. And coming up, the Obama campaign is doing its best to dig up dirt on a high-profile GOP lawmaker. But guess what? He's not even running for president. We'll tell you who it is and why they want to take him down early. Karl Rove is right here in studio with analysis. And then Beckel versus Deirdre Imus. You don't want to miss that. Straight ahead. All right, 2 years into the era of hope and change, the Democrats' dirty tricks, well, they're on full display. Even Republicans who aren't running for president, like New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, are now coming under attack. And according to the New York Post, quote, despite New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's repeated pronouncements that he will not seek the GOP presidential nomination, Obama operatives are compiling a dossier on him of what they call opposition research material that could be used to damage Christie if he changes his mind. Well, Christie's not alone. Former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty just announced his candidacy just hours ago, but the Democratic National Committee is already circulating this attack.
Governor Pawlenty eliminated the program that provides health care to 33,000 low-income residents. Governor has systematically been cutting programs for the poor since he took office.
I think President Bush was a leader with strong convictions. In the intermediate and long term, we have to move to cleaner and alternative energy sources.
Now, this comes on the heels of last week's smear against GOP Congressman Paul Ryan, which depicts him pushing Granny right off a cliff. Kid you not. Joining me with reaction is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Courage and Consequence, former advisor to President George W. Bush, Fox News contributor. They call him the architect, Karl Rove. How are you, sir?
Fabulous, sir.
Good to see you. Well, Granny being thrown over a cliff. You know, Tim Pawlenty said, I made a mistake on cap and trade.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that one, though. Let's start with that one because it happened today. Mm-hmm. They closed by having a quote up there saying, I don't know, I don't have a good answer for you on that. Mm-hmm. That comes from a Time magazine article written by a guy named Crowley. And the question that he asked was not, why are you running, which is what they put in that spot. He said, when did you start to see yourself as president? Mm-hmm. And Pawlenty says, well, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you for that. I mean, he doesn't remember.
So it's very deceptive. They marry these things together.
Clearly, even the writer of the story from which the quote was taken said, you distorted. I didn't ask the question you claimed I asked. And his answer was one of, well, he didn't know when he started to think about running for president, which, let me tell you, it's hard to pinpoint that date for virtually anybody.
Can we infer here that they're afraid of Pawlenty? Can we infer that they're afraid of Christie might jump in at one point?
I think they're let's say, even broader than that. Yes, they are. But they're also, let's put it in a broader context. This president has presided over a dismal failure when it comes to economic policy. 2.5 years, he's tried to spend our way into prosperity. All the things, the magic things that were going to happen when he passed the stimulus bill have failed. We've nearly doubled the size of the national debt. The country has got an anemic recovery. We're 13 million jobs below where we ought to be if we had the kind of recovery that we've had since World War II. So what are they doing? They can't go out there and say, re-elect this guy because he's got a terrific record and a compelling vision for the future. Instead, this is a sign of what they're going to do, which is trash every single Republican who runs, and whoever gets the nomination, they're going to go at him with the most vicious, negative presidential re-election campaign we have ever seen in our life.
I agree with you. I think your assessment's dead on, and it's to just break that down to the bottom line. He can't run on his record.
He can't win on his own vision. Last time around, he had an inspiring vision. I don't want to be the president of red states and blue states, but the United States. And enough people bought it. And yet what we've seen the last 2.5 years is that what he claimed to be a centrist who would bring us together, he's turned out to be an old-style Chicago politician, a far-left liberal on the fringes of that party, whose answer to things is not to say, let's sit down and work it out, but I won.
Are you as surprised as I am that he didn't even really make an attempt to triangulate like Clinton or move to the center like Clinton? You know, well, the recent example is obviously Israel.
Yeah. He's not that deft. Clinton is deft. Clinton is a politician par excellence who can pull that off. Obama doesn't have those kind of skills. He's not that hard a worker, and he doesn't have that kind of understanding of what politics works.
Let's analyze what he did here. On the eve of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, remember we rolled out the red carpet for China when the president came from China, and state dinner. Is Bibi getting a state dinner? I didn't see it.
No, he's not.
He's not getting a state dinner. All right. So. And
I'm not even certain he's getting a steak dinner, let alone a state dinner.
If he is, he's going to buy it himself, apparently, because the White House is not helping. But